I never imagined that the day I decided to stop being everyone's solution would be the day I finally started living my own life. My name is Dorothy Hayes. I'm 68 years old, and last month I taught my daughter a lesson she'll never forget, one that cost her the perfect image she'd spent years building. For 8 months, I had been the invisible architect of my daughter Vanessa's success. She had just launched her own interior design business, and I was her secret weapon. I handled her accounting, managed her supply orders, coordinated with contractors, and even drove across town to pick up fabric samples when she was too busy. I told myself it was temporary, that I was just helping her get established. After all, what kind of mother would I be if I didn't support my daughter's dreams? Vanessa had always been ambitious. Even as a child, she knew exactly what she wanted and how to get it. When she married Trevor 5 years ago, I thought she'd found someone who matched her drive. He worked in finance, made good money, and seemed genuinely devoted to her. They bought a beautiful townhouse in the historic district, the kind of place Vanessa had always fantasized about. She decorated it herself, of course, posting every room transformation on social media like a personal portfolio. Her followers grew, brands started reaching out, and then came the business idea. "Mom," she'd said to me one evening over dinner at my house, "I'm going to start my own firm. High-end residential design. I've already got 3 clients lined up." Her eyes sparkled with that familiar determination. "But I'm going to need help with the back-end stuff. You know, the boring business parts. You're so good with numbers and organization. Would you consider helping me out? Just until I can afford to hire someone." How could I say no? This was my daughter, my only child, asking for my help to achieve her dream. I had raised her alone after her father left when she was 6. I had worked 2 jobs to put her through design school. This was my chance to see all that sacrifice pay off, so I said yes, and that yes became my entire existence. At first, it felt good. I was useful, important. Vanessa would call me every morning with her task list, and I'd spend my days making her vision possible. I reorganized my entire life around her schedule. My book club? Canceled. My volunteer work at the community center? Put on hold. My Tuesday afternoon painting class that I'd just started after retiring? Abandoned after 3 sessions. Everything could wait. Vanessa's business couldn't. I told myself it was temporary. Just a few more months, I'd think, as I spent another Saturday inputting invoices instead of visiting my sister in Atlanta like I'd planned. Just until she gets on her feet, I'd remind myself as I turned down another invitation from my friend circle because Vanessa needed me to meet with a difficult supplier. But 8 months in, nothing had changed. If anything, Vanessa's demands had increased. She now expected me to be available 7 days a week. She'd text me at 10 at night with urgent tasks that needed to be done by morning. She'd drop by my house unannounced to pick up documents I'd prepared, barely staying long enough for a real conversation. And she never, not once, asked me if I was okay with any of it. The breaking point came on a Wednesday afternoon in early autumn. I was in my kitchen making my famous peach cobbler, my late mother's recipe, because Vanessa had mentioned she was bringing Trevor and his boss and his wife over for dinner that Friday. "Mom, you know how important this is," she'd said on the phone. "Mr. Peterson could refer me to his entire social circle, but I don't have time to cook anything impressive. Could you maybe make that cobbler? And maybe your honey-glazed chicken? And those roasted vegetables you do? I'll pick everything up Friday morning." I should have said no then, but I didn't. I never did. So there I was, peeling peaches, when I heard voices from my back porch. I have a small seating area out there with a table and chairs where I like to have my morning coffee. The kitchen window overlooks it. Vanessa had arrived early. I hadn't even heard her car, and she was on her phone, pacing back and forth in that aggressive way she does when she's in business mode. "No, Rachel, you don't understand," she was saying to someone. "I have the whole thing figured out. My mom handles literally everything I don't want to deal with. The bookkeeping, the vendor relationships, the scheduling nightmares. And she does it all for free because she thinks she's helping me get started." She laughed, and something in that laugh made my hands still on the peach I was holding. "I know, right?" Vanessa continued. "Trevor thinks I should start paying her something, but why would I? She's my mother. She's supposed to help. And honestly, she doesn't have anything else going on. She's retired. What else is she going to do with her time? At least this way she feels useful." I felt the peach slip from my fingers and hit the counter with a soft thud. "The best part," Vanessa went on, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone, is that she thinks this is temporary. She keeps saying, just until you hire someone. But I'm never hiring anyone. Why would I pay a bookkeeper $1,500 a month when I have free labor? And she's actually good at it. She even enjoys it, I think. She's always talking about how proud she is of the business. There was a pause as the person on the other end, Rachel, whoever that was, said something I couldn't hear. Oh, Trevor doesn't know the full extent of it, Vanessa replied. He thinks Mom just helps out occasionally. If he knew she was working 40 hours a week for me, he'd definitely make me pay her. So I just don't tell him everything. What he doesn't know won't hurt him. Another laugh. Honestly, Rachel, having a mother like this is like having a personal assistant who never complains, never asks for raises, and never quits. I hit the jackpot. My chest felt tight. My hands were trembling. I stood there behind my kitchen curtain, frozen, as my daughter, talked about me like I was some kind of exploitable resource, like my time, my skills, my entire retired life didn't matter, as long as she got what she needed. I have to go, Vanessa said suddenly. I'm at her house now, picking up some documents. I'll call you later. Yeah, I know. I'm lucky. She laughed one more time, that same casual, dismissive laugh, and then I heard her footsteps coming toward the back door. I quickly moved away from the window, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. I busied myself with the peaches, trying to look normal, trying to breathe normally, trying to process what I had just heard. Mom? Vanessa called as she entered through the back door into the kitchen. Are you here? I need those contractor estimates you compiled. I turned to face her, and for a moment I couldn't speak. This woman standing in my kitchen with her designer handbag and her perfectly styled hair and her expectant expression. This was my daughter, the little girl I had rocked to sleep every night, the teenager I had sat up with during heartbreaks, the young woman whose graduation I had cried through because I was so proud, and she saw me as nothing more than free labor. Mom? She said again, a hint of impatience in her voice. The estimates? They're on the dining room table, I managed to say. She breezed past me without another word. I heard her shuffling papers, and then she was back, folder in hand. Perfect. Thanks. Oh, and don't forget, Friday morning I need to pick up the food. Can you have everything ready by 9? We're eating at 7, but I need time to arrange everything nicely. She was already halfway out the door. Love you, Mom. And then she was gone. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by half-peeled peaches and the ruins of my self-respect, and something inside me cracked wide open. Not with sadness, I'd get to that later, but with a white-hot fury I hadn't felt in decades. How dare she? How dare she take everything I had given her and treat it like it was her right? How dare she laugh about manipulating me? How dare she plan to keep using me indefinitely while lying to her husband about it? I walked slowly to my dining room and sat down in the chair where my mother used to sit when she was alive. I could almost hear her voice. Dorothy, baby, you teach people how to treat you. She'd said that to me 1,000 times when I was younger, whenever someone took advantage of my helpful nature. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept. I had accepted this. For 8 months I had accepted being used, being taken for granted, being erased as a person with my own life and my own value. I had taught Vanessa that this was okay. It was time to teach her something different. Over the next 2 days, I didn't call Vanessa. She didn't call me either, which told me everything I needed to know. She only reached out when she needed something. I spent those 2 days thinking, planning, and making some very specific phone calls. On Friday morning at 8:30, my phone rang. Vanessa. Mom, I'm leaving the house now to come get the food. Is everything ready? Vanessa, I said calmly, we need to talk. Can it wait? I'm literally walking out the door. This dinner is crucial for my business. No, it can't wait. And there is no food. Silence. Then, what? There is no food, Vanessa. I didn't make anything. Mom, this isn't funny. I have people coming to my house in less than 10 hours. I'm not joking. I decided not to make the dinner. You'll need to figure something else out. I could hear her breathing getting heavier. Mom, what is going on? You promised you'd do this. Actually, you assumed I would do it. You didn't ask. You told me you were having a dinner, and you expected me to provide the food. Just like you expect me to provide everything else in your life without ever asking if I'm willing or if I have the time. Mom, I don't have time for whatever this is. We can talk about it later. Just tell me you're joking about the food. I'm not joking, and we're not going to talk about it later. We're going to talk about it now. I took a deep breath. I heard you, Vanessa. On Wednesday. On my back porch. I heard every word you said to Rachel. The silence that followed was so complete, I wondered if the call had dropped. Mom, she finally started. I heard you call me free labor. I heard you laugh about never hiring anyone because you have me. I heard you say that I don't have anything else going on with my life, so I might as well work for you. I heard you admit that you're lying to Trevor about how much I do for you because you know he'd make you pay me if he knew the truth. Mom, you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, Vanessa. I understand that for 8 months I have given you every spare moment of my time, every bit of my skill and energy, and you have taken it all while telling yourself and your friends that I'm lucky to have something to do, that I have no life of my own worth protecting. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. My voice was rising now, years of suppressed frustration finally breaking through. You have used me, Vanessa. You have manipulated me. You made me feel like a good mother for helping you, when really you were just exploiting the fact that I can't say no to you. Mom, please. I quit. What? I quit. I am done being your unpaid employee. I am done reorganizing my entire life around your business. I am done being taken for granted. But Mom, I need you. No, Vanessa. You need a bookkeeper. You need an administrative assistant. You need a business manager. What you don't need is to keep using your mother as all three without her consent. So what am I supposed to do? Her voice had shifted now, taking on a sharp edge. You're just going to abandon me right when my business is taking off? Your business has been taking off for 8 months. If it can't survive without me doing 40 hours a week of free work, then it's not a viable business. I can't believe you're doing this to me. And there it was. The selfishness laid bare. Not, I can't believe I've been treating you this way. Not, I'm sorry for taking advantage of you. Just outrage that I would dare to stop letting myself be used. Vanessa, I said quietly, I love you. You are my daughter, and I will always love you. But I will not allow you to treat me this way anymore. Figure out your dinner. Figure out your business. And when you're ready to apologize, really apologize, we can talk. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. But beneath the adrenaline and the anxiety, I felt something else. Liberation. Within an hour, my phone exploded. Texts from Vanessa, calls from Trevor, a voicemail from Vanessa that started with anger and ended with tears. But I didn't respond to any of it. I turned off my phone, made myself a cup of tea, and sat on my back porch, the same porch where I'd heard the truth about how my daughter really saw me. What I didn't know yet was that this was only the beginning. What I didn't know was that Vanessa's dinner party would unravel in ways I never anticipated, and that the consequences of my decision would ripple through our family in ways that would force everyone to show their true colors. What I didn't know was that sometimes the bravest thing a mother can do is refuse to be used by the child she raised. But I was about to find out. I kept my phone off for the rest of Friday. It was liberating and terrifying in equal measure. I kept imagining Vanessa's dinner party, the doorbell ringing as Mr. Peterson and his wife arrived, the awkward moment when Vanessa would have to admit she had no food prepared, the scramble to order takeout or make reservations somewhere at the last minute. Part of me felt guilty, but a larger part of me felt vindicated. Saturday morning, I finally turned my phone back on. 47 missed calls, 63 text messages. I made myself breakfast first, scrambled eggs, toast, fresh orange juice, and ate slowly, deliberately. When I was done, I poured a second cup of coffee and sat down to read through everything. The messages from Vanessa started angry. I can't believe you would sabotage me like this. You've ruined everything. How could you do this to your own daughter? Then they shifted to desperate. Mom, please call me back. We need to talk. I'm sorry if I said something that hurt you, but we can work this out. And finally, after what I assumed was the disastrous dinner party, they became manipulative. Mr. Peterson left early. He said he couldn't work with someone so unprofessional. I've probably lost thousands in potential referrals. I hope you're happy. Trevor's messages were different. Confused at first. Dorothy, Vanessa is really upset. Can you call her? Then concerned. I don't know what happened between you two, but Vanessa is saying you abandoned her. That doesn't sound like you. And finally, revealing, Vanessa told me what she said on the phone. I had no idea she was taking advantage of you like that. I'm so sorry. Can we talk? That last message from Trevor surprised me. I decided to call him back first. "Dorothy," he answered on the first ring. "Thank God. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Trevor. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of this. Don't apologize. I'm the one who should apologize. I knew Vanessa was asking you to help with the business, but I had no idea it was this extensive. 40 hours a week, and she wasn't paying you? She told you? She had to. Last night was a disaster. We ended up ordering pizzas at the last minute, but by the time they arrived, Mr. Peterson and his wife had already decided to leave. Vanessa was hysterical. She kept saying you'd sabotaged her, but I pressed her on why she'd been so dependent on you for something as basic as dinner. That's when it all came out. I sipped my coffee, letting him continue. "Dorothy, I'm ashamed. I should have paid more attention. I should have asked more questions. She made it sound like you were just helping out here and there, not running half her business. And when she admitted she'd been planning to keep using you indefinitely without compensation, I lost it. We had a huge fight. Trevor, I don't want to cause problems in your marriage. You didn't cause anything. Vanessa did, and she needs to face that." He paused. "She's not used to people telling her no. You know that better than anyone." He was right. I had never told Vanessa no. Not when she was a demanding toddler, not when she was a manipulative teenager, not when she was an entitled adult. I had always been there, always said yes, always made things easier for her. I had thought I was being a good mother. Instead, I had created someone who believed the world, and especially her mother, existed to serve her needs. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. "That's up to you and Vanessa. But Dorothy, I want you to know, you did the right thing. She needs to learn this lesson, and honestly, her business needs to stand on its own. If it can't survive without exploiting you, then it's not sustainable anyway." After I hung up with Trevor, I felt a weight lift slightly. At least someone understood. At least someone saw what had been happening. But I still hadn't heard from Vanessa herself. Not a real conversation. Just those manipulative texts. I knew she was waiting for me to cave, to call her crying and apologizing, to beg her to let me back into her life. That's how it had always worked before. Whenever we'd had any conflict, I would be the one to reach out, to smooth things over, to make peace. Not this time. Sunday passed quietly. I went to church for the first time in months. I'd stopped going because Sunday mornings were when Vanessa needed the most help preparing for her week. I saw friends I hadn't seen in ages. "Dorothy," they exclaimed, "where have you been?" I made plans to rejoin my book club. I called my sister in Atlanta and booked a train ticket for the following weekend. I started reclaiming my life, piece by piece. Monday morning, my doorbell rang at 9 o'clock. I looked through the peephole and saw Vanessa standing there, alone. She looked terrible. Hair in a messy ponytail, no makeup, eyes red and swollen. Part of me wanted to throw open the door and hug her like I always did when she was hurting. But I remembered what I'd heard her say on that phone call, and I made myself take a breath before opening the door. "Hi, Mom," she said quietly. "Vanessa, can I come in?" I stepped aside and let her enter. She walked into my living room, the same living room where she'd grown up, where we'd watched movies together, where I'd helped her with homework at the coffee table, and sat down on the edge of the couch like a stranger in an unfamiliar place. I sat in the armchair across from her and waited. "I'm sorry," she finally said, and immediately tears started streaming down her face. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I've been awful to you." I didn't respond. I needed to hear more than just those words. "Trevor and I have been fighting all weekend," she continued. "He made me go through everything. Every task I've asked you to do, every hour you've spent on my business, every time I've taken you for granted. And Mom, when I saw it all laid out like that, I was horrified. I was horrified at myself. Why, Vanessa? Why did you do it?" She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Because I could. Because you never said no. Because it was easy and free and I told myself you didn't mind." She looked up at me, her face broken open with genuine anguish. "And because some sick part of me felt entitled to it. Like you owed me for all the years you worked to raise me. Like your whole life should be about making mine easier." The honesty shocked me. I had expected excuses, justifications, deflections, not this raw admission. "Do you understand how much that hurt me?" I asked. "Hearing you laugh about using me? Hearing you tell your friend that I have nothing else going on, so I might as well work for you? I know. God, Mom, I know. I can't believe I said those things. I can't believe I thought those things." She was sobbing now. When Trevor played it back to me, what my words really meant, I wanted to die. That's not who I want to be. That's not how I want to treat you. But it is how you treated me, Vanessa. For 8 months. I know. We sat in silence for a long moment. I could hear the old grandfather clock in the hallway ticking, the same clock that had been there throughout Vanessa's entire childhood. How many times had we sat in this room together? How many conversations had we had here? And yet somehow, we'd never had this one. The one where my daughter had to face the fact that she'd been cruel to me. "What do you want from me, Vanessa?" I finally asked. She looked startled. "What do you mean? Why are you here? To apologize? To ask me to come back? To make yourself feel better?" I don't know. All of those things, I guess. She twisted her hands together. "Mom, I need you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I never saw it as using you. I just saw it as you being my mom. You being there for me like you've always been there for me. But Vanessa, I've always been there for you because I chose to be, because I loved you and wanted to support you. Not because you were entitled to my time and labor. I see that now. I swear I do." She leaned forward. "Mom, I want to make this right. Tell me how to make this right." "I don't know if you can, sweetheart. At least not immediately. You've broken something between us. My trust. My belief that you saw me as a person, not just as your mother who exists to make your life easier." She flinched at that. "Good." She needed to flinch. "Trevor says I should pay you," she said quietly, "for all the work you did. He calculated it out based on what I would have paid a bookkeeper and assistant. It's almost $12,000. I don't want your money, Vanessa. But you earned it. I don't want your money. If you pay me now, it's just to make yourself feel less guilty. It doesn't undo what you did. It doesn't change the fact that you were planning to use me indefinitely without ever compensating me. Then what do you want?" I thought about that question. What did I want? An apology? I had that, though I wasn't sure yet if it was real or just panic at losing her support system. Money? That felt hollow. The relationship we had before? That was impossible. We could never go back to the way things were, and honestly, I didn't want to. "I want you to build a business that doesn't depend on exploiting your mother," I finally said. "I want you to hire the people you need and pay them fairly. I want you to learn how to manage your own life without assuming I'll always be there to catch you when you fall. And I want you to look at yourself, really look at yourself, and figure out why you thought it was okay to treat me that way. I can do that. I will do that. And Vanessa, I need space, time. You can't just apologize and expect everything to go back to normal. You've hurt me deeply. I need time to heal from that." She nodded, tears still streaming down her face. "How much time?" "I don't know. As much as I need." She stood up slowly, looking lost and small despite being a grown woman of 33. "Mom, do you still love me?" The question broke my heart. "Of course I still love you, Vanessa. You're my daughter. I will always love you. But love doesn't mean letting you hurt me. Love doesn't mean being available for abuse. I understand." She walked toward the door, then turned back. "Mom, I really am sorry, and I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to be better. I hope so, sweetheart. I really do." After she left, I sat in my living room for a long time, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. The confrontation was over, but the consequences were just beginning. That afternoon, I got a call from my friend Patricia, who I hadn't spoken to in months because I'd been too busy working for Vanessa. "Dorothy Hayes," she said when I answered. "I heard through the grapevine that you've returned to the land of the living." I laughed despite myself. "Who told you?" "I saw you at church yesterday, and then Marjorie called me this morning saying you'd rejoined book club. What happened? Did Vanessa finally give you a day off?" "Actually, I quit." "You quit what?" "Working for Vanessa. For free. For 40 hours a week, for the last 8 months. The silence on the other end was profound. Then, "Dorothy, what are you talking about?" I told her everything. The whole story spilled out. The months of unpaid work, the conversation I'd overheard, the dinner party I'd sabotaged, the confrontation with Vanessa. Patricia listened without interrupting, and when I was done, she let out a low whistle. "Well, damn," she said. "Good for you." "Really?" "Hell yes, really. Dorothy, we've all been worried about you. You disappeared. You stopped coming to things. And whenever we did see you, you looked exhausted. We figured something was wrong, but we didn't want to pry. I thought I was helping her. You were, but she was taking advantage of that help. There's a difference." Patricia paused. "You know what you need? You need to do something completely for yourself, something that has nothing to do with Vanessa or her business or being a mother, something just for Dorothy. Like what? I don't know. What have you always wanted to do but never had time for? I thought about that. What had I always wanted to do? Before Vanessa's business consumed my life, before retirement, before raising a child alone, before everything, what had I dreamed of? I always wanted to learn pottery, I said quietly. There's a studio downtown that offers classes. I looked into it years ago, but then life got busy and I never followed through. So, sign up? Just like that? Just like that. Dorothy, you're 68 years old. You've spent your entire life taking care of other people. Your daughter is grown. Your work is done. It's time to take care of yourself. After I hung up with Patricia, I looked up the pottery studio online. They had a beginner's class starting the following Tuesday evening. 6 weeks, 1 night a week, 2 hours per session. I stared at the registration button for a long time, remembering all the things I'd given up over the years because someone else needed me more. I clicked register and paid the fee before I could talk myself out of it. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The following Tuesday, I walked into the pottery studio with a mixture of nervousness and excitement I hadn't felt in decades. The space was beautiful. High ceilings, huge windows, rows of pottery wheels, and shelves lined with finished pieces in various stages of glazing and firing. There were 8 other students in the class, ranging in age from early 20s to late 70s. Our instructor, a woman named Lauren with clay perpetually under her fingernails, welcomed us with genuine warmth. Pottery is meditative, she told us as we settled onto our stools. It requires you to be completely present. You can't think about your to-do list or your problems or anything else when you're centering clay. You have to focus on the moment, on the feel of the clay beneath your hands, on the pressure and the rhythm. It's just you and the wheel and the earth. She was right. For 2 hours, I focused on nothing but the spinning wheel and the wet clay rising and collapsing and rising again under my inexpert hands. My first bowl was lopsided and too thick. My second collapsed entirely. But by the end of the class, I had created something, a small, imperfect vessel that was entirely mine. I drove home that night covered in clay dust, my hands tired, my mind clear, and my heart lighter than it had been in months. This is what joy feels like, I thought. This is what it feels like to do something just because I want to, not because someone needs me to. Over the next few weeks, I continued reclaiming my life. I went to Atlanta to visit my sister and stayed for 5 days instead of rushing back. I rejoined my book club and actually read the book this time instead of skimming the summary online. I started going to an exercise class at the community center. I made plans with friends. I cooked meals I wanted to eat, not meals designed to impress someone else's guests. And I didn't hear from Vanessa. 2 weeks after our confrontation, I finally texted her. "How are you doing?" It felt strange to have to reach out, to not be in constant contact, but I needed to know she was okay. She responded hours later. "I'm okay. Hired a bookkeeper. It's expensive but necessary. Still learning. Miss you." I stared at those 2 words, miss you, and felt a complicated tangle of emotions. I missed her too, but I didn't miss the relationship we'd had. I didn't miss being used. 3 weeks after our confrontation, Trevor called me. "Dorothy, can we meet for coffee? Just you and me?" We met at a cafe halfway between our houses. Trevor looked tired, but more relaxed than I'd seen him in a while. "How is she really doing?" I asked after we'd ordered. "She's struggling," he admitted. "The bookkeeper she hired is competent but expensive. She's had to raise her rates to compensate, and she lost a couple of clients because of it. She's stressed and overwhelmed, and there have been moments where I know she wanted to call you and ask for help. But she didn't. No, because I told her that if she contacts you before you're ready, I'll move out." He said it calmly, matter-of-factly. "Dorothy, I love your daughter, but what she did to you was wrong, and she needs to learn to solve her own problems. She's been coddled her entire life, by you, by her teachers, by everyone, and now she's facing real consequences for the first time. Do you think she's learned anything?" Trevor was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I think she's learned that actions have consequences. Whether she's learned to value you as a person and not just as a resource, that I'm not sure about yet. She says the right things, but I need to see sustained change before I'll believe it." "That's very wise. I learned it from you." He smiled sadly. "You've always been kind to me, Dorothy. Even when Vanessa was demanding and difficult, you treated me with respect. I should have stood up for you sooner. You're standing up for me now. That means something. As I drove home from that coffee meeting, I realized something important. I had spent so much time trying to be the perfect mother that I'd forgotten to teach Vanessa how to be a decent human being. I'd given her everything she wanted, solved every problem she faced, made life smooth and easy for her. And in doing so, I'd robbed her of the chance to develop resilience, resourcefulness, and empathy. This was my fault too, in a way. Not the manipulation, that was all her, but the entitled attitude that made her think manipulation was acceptable. I had planted those seeds by never making her face consequences. 4 weeks after our confrontation, Vanessa showed up at my pottery class. I was at the wheel, working on a vase that was finally starting to look intentional rather than accidental, when I saw her standing in the doorway of the studio. She didn't come in. She just stood there, watching, and when I made eye contact, she gave me a small, uncertain wave. I finished my piece, cleaned my hands, and walked outside to where she was waiting. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Vanessa. What are you doing here?" "Trevor told me about your class. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see you doing something for yourself." She looked at the studio behind me. "How is it?" "It's wonderful. Challenging and frustrating and satisfying all at once. Like parenting," she said quietly. I almost laughed. Yes, very much like parenting. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment before Vanessa spoke again. "Mom, I've been seeing a therapist." "Have you?" Trevor insisted. At first I was angry about it, but now I'm glad. "My therapist has helped me see a lot of things about myself that I didn't want to see." She took a breath. "I have a pattern of using people. Not just you. Friends, colleagues, Trevor. I take and take and take, and I justify it by telling myself that I deserve it because I work hard, or because I have a vision, or because I'm special somehow. That's very insightful. It's painful. I don't like what I'm learning about myself, but I need to learn it." She looked at me directly. "Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me or come back or anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm working on it. I'm trying to become someone who deserves your respect." Something in her voice, the humility, the genuine pain, the absence of manipulation, touched me. "I appreciate you telling me that, Vanessa. Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think you'll ever be able to trust me again?" I thought about that question carefully. "I don't know, sweetheart. I want to. But trust is rebuilt slowly through consistent action over time. You can't just apologize and expect it to magically come back." "I know, but I want to try. If you'll let me." "How?" "I want to start over. Not as employer and employee, or even as mother and daughter with all that history and baggage, just as two people getting to know each other." She gestured to the studio. "Maybe I could take the next pottery session with you? Not to insert myself into your space, but to share something you love? To do something together that doesn't involve my business or my needs?" I was surprised by the offer, and even more surprised to find that part of me wanted to say yes. "Let me think about it," I said. "That's fair." She smiled tentatively. "I should go. I just wanted to see you, to tell you about therapy, to let you know I'm trying." As she walked away, I watched her get into her car and drive off, and I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of a path toward it. If you've ever had to set boundaries with someone you love, you know how hard it is, how you doubt yourself constantly, wondering if you're being too harsh, too unforgiving, too selfish. If this story resonates with you, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear how you navigated your own situations. That night, I called Patricia and told her about Vanessa's visit. "So are you going to let her take the class with you?" she asked. "I'm considering it." "Good. She needs to earn her way back into your life, Dorothy. But she also needs to be given the chance to try. Just make sure you're doing it because you want to, not because you feel obligated." "How do I tell the difference?" Patricia laughed. "You'll know. If you say yes and feel resentful or anxious or trapped, that's obligation. If you say yes and feel curious or hopeful or open, that's genuine choice." I sat with that wisdom for several days, and when I finally texted Vanessa to tell her she could join me for the next pottery session, I paid attention to how I felt, cautiously hopeful, open to possibility, genuinely curious about whether she could change, not obligated, not trapped, not resentful. It was a start, but what I didn't know then, what I would discover over the coming weeks, was that Vanessa's transformation would be tested in ways neither of us expected, and that the real challenge wouldn't be whether she could change, but whether she could maintain that change when things got difficult. The hardest lessons I was about to learn are the ones we have to learn over and over again. The pottery class became our neutral ground. Every Tuesday evening for 6 weeks, Vanessa and I sat side by side at our wheels, our hands covered in clay, our attention focused on the spinning earth beneath our fingers rather than the complicated history between us. Lauren, our instructor, had a rule. No talking during wheelwork. Let the clay speak, she'd say. So we worked in silence, and somehow that silence was healing. Vanessa struggled at first. She wanted immediate results, perfect symmetry, Instagram-worthy pieces. When her bowls collapsed or her vases leaned precariously to one side, I could see the frustration building in her face. But she kept trying. She didn't give up or complain or ask me to fix it for her. She just centered the clay again and started over. It's humbling, she admitted during one of our breaks. We were sitting outside the studio, drinking water, our hands stained with iron-rich clay. I'm used to being good at things, or at least being able to hire people who are good at things, but I can't hire someone to learn pottery for me. No, I agreed. You can't. Is that why you like it? Because it's something you have to do yourself? I thought about that, partly, but also because it's forgiving. The clay doesn't judge you. If you mess up, you just add water and start again. There's always another chance. Vanessa looked at me then with an expression I couldn't quite read. I hope that's true for more than just clay. We were halfway through the 6-week session when Vanessa's business hit a crisis. A major client, one who represented nearly 30% of her revenue, threatened to leave because of missed deadlines and disorganization. The bookkeeper Vanessa had hired was competent with numbers but had no project management skills, and Vanessa had never learned how to manage complex timelines on her own. She'd always had me to do that. Trevor called me on a Thursday night. Dorothy, I need your advice. Vanessa is falling apart. She's working 16-hour days trying to catch up on this client's project, but she's drowning. She's talking about calling you, begging you to come help her. What do you think I should do? I think you should let her fail. His words shocked me. Trevor, I know how that sounds, but Dorothy, if you rescue her now, she'll never learn. She'll know that when things get truly desperate, you'll cave, and we'll be right back where we started. He paused. She needs to figure this out herself, even if it means losing the client. Losing that client could destroy her business. Maybe, or maybe it'll force her to restructure, to build something sustainable instead of something that only works when you're propping it up. I lay awake that night thinking about Trevor's words. Every instinct I had as a mother screamed at me to help Vanessa, to step in, to save her, to prevent her from experiencing the pain of failure. But I knew Trevor was right. If I rescued her now, I'd be teaching her that boundaries don't really matter, that if she pushed hard enough, I would always break. Friday morning, my phone rang. Vanessa. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. A text came through. Mom, please. I'm desperate. I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm about to lose everything. Just this once. I swear I'll never ask again. I stared at that message for a long time. Just this once. That's what I'd told myself 8 months ago when she first asked for help. Just this once had turned into 8 months of unpaid labor and complete self-erasure. I texted back, I love you, Vanessa, but no, you need to figure this out yourself. Her response came immediately. I can't believe you're going to let me fail. And then, I guess I know where I stand with you now. And finally, some mother you are. That last message felt like a knife to the chest. I sat on my couch, phone in hand, tears streaming down my face, every fiber of my being wanting to call her back and say I'd help, but I didn't. I turned off my phone and went to my pottery studio, the corner of my basement where I'd set up a small practice wheel. I centered clay and threw bowls until my hands were raw and my mind was quiet. That weekend was torture. I didn't know what was happening with Vanessa's business. I didn't know if she was okay, if she was eating, if she was sleeping. I wanted to call Trevor for updates, but I forced myself not to. This was her crisis to navigate, not mine to monitor. On Sunday afternoon, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Vanessa standing there. She looked terrible, hair unwashed, clothes rumpled, dark circles under her eyes that spoke of days without sleep. But there was something different in her posture. Not the defeated slump I expected, but something straighter, steadier. I opened the door. I did it, she said without preamble. Did what? I saved the client. Not by myself. I hired an emergency project manager for triple the normal rate, and I'm going to be paying that off for months. And I had to call in every favor I had with vendors to rush orders, and I personally worked 3 all-nighters in a row to get the designs done. But I did it. The client is staying. I didn't know what to say. And Mom, I'm so angry at you right now. Her voice was steady but raw. I'm angry that you didn't help me when I was drowning. I'm angry that you let me struggle when one phone call from you could have fixed everything. I braced myself, waiting for the attack, the guilt trip, the manipulation. But then she said something that completely surprised me. And I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that you didn't cave. Because if you had helped me, I would never have learned that I could do it myself. I would never have discovered that I'm stronger than I thought. I would have spent the rest of my life believing I needed you to survive. My breath caught. Mom, this was the hardest week of my entire life. There were moments when I genuinely thought my business was going to collapse, that I was going to lose everything I'd built, and I wanted to hate you for not rescuing me. But then I realized you were rescuing me, just not in the way I wanted. You were rescuing me from myself. She started crying then, and so did I, and we stood in my doorway holding each other for the first time in months. Really holding each other. Not the quick, obligatory hugs we'd exchanged before, but a real embrace between 2 people who had hurt each other and were trying to find their way back. I'm sorry, she whispered into my shoulder, for everything, for using you, for taking you for granted, for saying those horrible things when you wouldn't help me this week. I'm so sorry. I forgive you, I said, and I meant it. Not because the hurt was gone, but because I could see she was genuinely changing. Not just saying the right words, but doing the hard work. We went inside and talked for hours. Vanessa told me about the week from hell. The panic, the problem solving, the moment she realized she actually had the skills to manage her own business. She'd just never been forced to use them. She told me about the project manager she'd hired, a woman named Sandra, who was now going to stay on part-time to help Vanessa build better systems. I'm paying her what I should have been paying you, Vanessa admitted. And even though it's expensive, it's worth it. Because Sandra is professional, we have clear boundaries, clear expectations, clear hours. It's not this murky thing where I'm constantly asking for just one more favor and blurring the lines between family and work. Ah, that's very mature of you to recognize that. My therapist helped me see it. She said that mixing family and business is dangerous unless you have explicit boundaries. And we never had those. I never gave you the option to say no because I never actually asked yes or no questions. I just assumed. We talked about the pottery class, about the pieces she'd made, about how learning to accept imperfection in her bowls was teaching her to accept imperfection in her life. We talked about Trevor, about how he'd been her rock during the crisis, and how she was learning to see him as a partner rather than as another person whose job was to make her life easier. I think I've been afraid my whole life, Vanessa said quietly, as the afternoon sun slanted through my living room windows. Afraid of not being good enough. Afraid of failing. Afraid of people seeing that I'm not as perfect as I pretend to be. And I've dealt with that fear by controlling everything and everyone around me. By making sure I always had backup plans and safety nets, even if those safety nets were people I was using. Where do you think that fear comes from? She was quiet for a long time. I think it comes from Dad leaving. I was 6, and one day he was there, and the next day he was gone. And I remember thinking that if I had been better, prettier, smarter, less noisy, maybe he would have stayed. I know that's not rational. I know his leaving had nothing to do with me. But 6-year-olds don't think rationally. My heart broke for the little girl she'd been, the one who'd internalized her father's abandonment as evidence of her own inadequacy. Vanessa, your father leaving was about his own weakness, his own inability to handle responsibility. It had nothing to do with you. I know that in my head. But that scared 6-year-old is still inside me, still trying to be perfect enough that no one else will leave, still trying to control everything so I never feel that abandoned again. Is that why you held on to me so tightly? Because you were afraid of losing me too? Maybe. Or maybe I was testing you. Maybe some part of me wanted to see how much I could take before you'd leave, just like Dad did. And when you finally set boundaries and walked away from my wedding, that little girl inside me panicked. But the adult me realized you weren't leaving me. You were just refusing to be used. There's a difference. We sat in silence for a while, processing everything that had been said. Outside, I could hear children playing in the neighborhood, their laughter drifting through the open window. Life going on, as it always does, regardless of our personal dramas. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you regret having me? Do you ever wish you'd had a different life, one where you weren't a single mother struggling to raise a demanding daughter? The question took my breath away. Vanessa, no, never. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Yes, it was hard. Yes, there were sacrifices. But I would make every single one of them again if it meant having you in my life, even after everything I put you through, even after everything. Because you're learning, you're growing, you're becoming the person I always knew you could be, and that makes every difficult moment worth it. She cried again then, but they were different tears. Not tears of manipulation or self-pity, but tears of release, of healing, of genuine gratitude. I want to be worthy of you, she said. I want to be the kind of daughter you can be proud of. You already are, sweetheart. Not because you're perfect, but because you're willing to look at your flaws and work on them. That takes courage. Before Vanessa left that evening, she handed me an envelope. Don't open it now. Open it after I leave. After she drove away, I sat down with the envelope. Inside was a check for $12,000, the amount Trevor had calculated for 8 months of work, along with a handwritten letter. Mom, I know you said you didn't want money, but please accept this anyway. Not as payment for the work you did. That's priceless and can never be truly compensated, but as acknowledgement that your time and skills have value and that I should have recognized that from the beginning. I don't expect this to fix everything. I don't expect you to cash it and suddenly trust me again. But I need you to know that I understand what I did was wrong, and this is one small way of trying to make it right. Thank you for loving me enough to let me fail. Thank you for believing I could handle it even when I didn't believe it myself. Thank you for being the kind of mother who teaches hard lessons instead of easy escapes. I love you more than words can say. Vanessa. I sat there holding that check and that letter, and I made a decision. I would cash the check, but I wouldn't keep the money. I would donate it to a women's shelter in my late mother's name, a place that helped women who were learning to stand up for themselves and set boundaries, just like I had. Vanessa didn't need to know. This wasn't about the money. It was about her recognizing that she'd done something wrong and trying to make amends. The gesture itself was what mattered. Over the next few months, Vanessa and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. We had lunch once a week, always at a restaurant, always for a set amount of time, always with clear boundaries about what we would and wouldn't discuss. She told me about her business challenges, but she didn't ask me to solve them. She asked for my advice occasionally, but she accepted it when I said, I don't know, sweetheart. That's your decision to make. I told her about my pottery, about the pieces I was creating, about the meditative joy I found in the studio. I told her about my book club, about the trip I was planning to visit my college roommate in Oregon, about the volunteer work I'd resumed at the community center. I showed her that I had a full, rich life that didn't revolve around her needs, and slowly, gradually, trust began to rebuild. 6 months after our confrontation, Vanessa called me with news. Mom, I got accepted into a juried art show. They're going to display 3 of my pottery pieces. Vanessa, that's wonderful. Which pieces? The 3 from our class together. The wonky bowl that's too thick on one side, the vase that leans slightly left, and the plate with the fingerprint marks I couldn't smooth out, the ones I thought were failures. Why those? Because the juror said they had character, that they showed the hand of the maker, the humanity in the imperfection. They told a story about learning and growing and accepting that not everything has to be perfect to be valuable. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'm so proud of you. Mom, I want you to come to the opening, and I want to introduce you to everyone as my mother, not as someone who helped me or supported me or any other diminishing phrase, just as my mother, the woman who taught me the most important lesson of my life. The opening was beautiful. Vanessa's pieces were displayed alongside works by established artists, and seeing them there, those imperfect, honest, human pieces, filled me with a pride I couldn't quite articulate. Not pride in what I had done for her, but pride in what she had done for herself. As we stood in the gallery, looking at her work, Vanessa put her arm around my shoulders. Thank you for saying no to me, Mom. Thank you for loving me enough to let me struggle. Thank you for teaching me that boundaries are a form of love, not rejection. You're welcome, sweetheart. But you did the hard work. You chose to learn instead of staying bitter. That was all you. I had a good teacher. We stood there together, mother and daughter, two women who had hurt each other and healed each other and found a new way to love each other. Not the enmeshed, codependent love I'd thought was normal, but something healthier, stronger, more sustainable. Love with boundaries. Love with respect. Love that honored both of us as whole, separate people. If you've ever struggled with setting boundaries with family, I hope this story encourages you. It's not easy. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, when you wonder if you're being too harsh, when every instinct screams at you to give in. But boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges. They're what allow relationships to exist between two complete people instead of one person consuming the other. A year after I overheard that conversation on my back porch, Vanessa threw me a birthday party. Not because she needed something from me, but just because she wanted to celebrate me. She invited my friends, my sister, my book club members, my pottery classmates. She hired caterers. She handled everything herself. During the party, she stood up to make a toast. Most of you know that my mom and I went through a rough patch last year. What you might not know is that it was entirely my fault. I took advantage of her kindness, her generosity, her love. I used her instead of appreciating her. And when she finally stood up for herself, I had two choices. I could blame her and play the victim, or I could look at myself and do better. She looked at me across the room, her eyes shining with tears. Mom, you gave me the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. You believed I was strong enough to handle the truth and brave enough to change. You were right on both counts. I'm not perfect. I'm still learning, still growing, still catching myself when I slip into old patterns. But I'm trying. And I want you to know that everything good in my life right now, my marriage, my business, my sense of self, exists because you loved me enough to say no. The room erupted in applause, but I barely heard it. I was looking at my daughter, my beautiful, flawed, growing, trying daughter, and feeling a gratitude so deep it took my breath away. Not gratitude for who she'd been, but for who she was becoming, and for the relationship we were building together. One honest conversation at a time. That night, after everyone had gone home and I was alone in my house, I went down to my basement studio. I sat at my wheel and centered a fresh ball of clay. As it spun beneath my hands, I thought about everything that had happened over the past year. The pain, the confrontation, the slow, difficult healing. And I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, exhausted, taken for granted, erased, and the woman I was now, whole, respected, seen. The clay rose beneath my hands, smooth and centered and full of possibility. I shaped it slowly, carefully, letting it teach me what it wanted to become. A bowl emerged, wide and open and perfectly imperfect, just like me, just like Vanessa, just like the relationship we were building together. I learned something profound in my 69th year. It's never too late to teach people how to treat you. It's never too late to reclaim your dignity. It's never too late to say no to what diminishes you and yes to what honors you. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to let them use you. Because true love doesn't enable weakness. It challenges the people we love to become their strongest, truest selves. My name is Dorothy Hayes. I'm 69 years old. And last year, I finally learned that being a good mother doesn't mean sacrificing yourself on the altar of your child's comfort. It means teaching them that everyone, including you, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, even by the people who love us most, especially by the people who love us most.